So it says we're live. And it says we are live. Yes, it worked. Okay, so good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever and whenever you are tuning in. I want to say thank you for joining us for, it's not necessarily an impromptu live. Me and our guest this evening discussed this last week, but we wanted to make sure that we fit it in before the Christmas rush. And I felt like this was a great time because a lot of people are winding down and relaxing. So I'm hoping that a lot of value is gained from this conversation. So I would like to welcome Kea Simmons, who is the owner and CEO of Traverze Culture and whose Kenyan name is Wakesho. I want to put some respect on your Kenyan name. And we are here to talk about surviving in the West, thriving in Africa, why more entrepreneurs and individuals, particularly from the diaspora, are relocating to Kenya specifically. And Kea is the perfect guest to speak about this because of what she does. And you moved from the States to Kenya some years ago, and not only have you not turned back, you actually have relocated there and set up your business. So tell us a little bit more about, I kind of want to start at the beginning. What was your first interaction with Kenya? What brought you to Kenya in the first place? And what made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, that's always been a great question. So it started with me working in Afghanistan. I am ex-military, but when I got out of the military, I also did civilian contracting in Afghanistan for 3.5 years. And this is the first time I ever met a Kenyan or Ugandan a day of my life, and never met a Kenyan ever in the US. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, of the Gullah Geechee culture. And being in Charleston, you don't meet a lot of people outside of our culture. It's pretty black and white. So you only, and I mean literally black and white. And so you only tend to meet people if you go to, I moved to Miami when I was a teenager for a little while. And that was the first time that I met Jamaicans and Haitians and Puerto Ricans and all of the things, right? And so when I got to Afghanistan, I met my brother, James Mloasi, from Mombasa, Bamburi area, and he is half Taita and Lua. So this is how I got my Taita name, Wakesho, and his mom is Lua, so they gave me Wakesho Akini. It was funny because then 9 years after me coming to the country, we did our DNA, our family did our DNA, traced it through the Eve, and we actually came back 27.7% Kenyan and of the Lua tribe. So I actually had my DNA tribal name the whole time and didn't even know it, Akini.
Wow.
I met James, and James introduced me to Kenya. And this was a period in my life, I believe I was 28 years old. And I was exploring what it meant to be an African woman globally, right? It's one thing to be African American in the US, but what does that mean globally? Our history didn't start with the transatlantic slave trade. We were people before then. We had history before then, and I started that journey around my enlightenment, if you will, and it led me to James, I guess, right, organically. And he started telling me about Kenya, and I was like, I'm going. And he's like, oh, no, you're not. I was like, yeah, I'm going. And 2 weeks later, I bought my ticket
Wow.
and landed at Moi International Airport in 2011. So someone was teasing me today. They said, geez, you've been here for 3 terms. So I've been coming to this country since Kibaki was president. I was here when Uhuru was voted president, and now I'm here doing Ruto. So 3 administrations, over a decade, 14 years coming to this country. But that's how it started.
Thank you for sharing that. And there's a little bit of resonance. I haven't been going to Kenya for 14 years, but I did my DNA, my ancestry in 2020, I believe it was, or 2021. I can't remember. And whilst I'm majority Nigerian, actually, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that I believe it was 14.9% Kenyan. And
See?
yeah, so I've always had an affinity to Kenya. Well, I'd say always. In the last 6 years, I'd say my affinity to Kenya has really kind of blossomed. And I feel like I'm doing your journey, but I'm a few years behind, which is why I
Yeah,
was really
no.
excited to have this conversation. So visiting Kenya is one thing. Moving to Kenya and setting up a business is quite another. What was the kind of thing that tipped you over the edge and said, actually, I'm not going home?
Well, from the beginning, it always been a part of the journey, right? I have a son. So
Mhm.
during that time, I believe my son was 8 or 5 or something, right? He's 19. He just left this morning from Kenya back to the US. But I couldn't just leave then, right? And I was still working overseas. So it was a part of the journey to always move to Kenya. But I started my business in 2018 here in Kenya and globally. I did business in Senegal, I've done business in Jamaica, I've done South Africa, London, and a few other places, right? But Kenya has always been the hub, and it was always a part of the journey to permanently move at some point once I was finished with my dealings in the US and my son actually graduate from high school, and then I can permanently move. But I started living here 6 months at a time, 7 months at a time, go back to that. I would end up being here more of the year than in the US, right? And so then it came a time like, okay, my son graduated high school. Now he's in his second year of uni. And it's time for me to go ahead and make that permanent move, because I would lose a lot of momentum when I go back to the States running my business from the US here. But the good thing is that I've been blessed to be able to create such a great network and guardrails. And I have the best team in Kenya, hands down. And my oldest teammate has been with me for the last 7 years. So it's been a journey to operate from the US and coming back and forth. But then ultimately the goal was to move to Kenya.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, for those who don't know, tell us what your business does and why does it work so effectively in Kenya?
We just I just acknowledge that we have transitioned from being a travel concierge company to a relocation mobility company that specializes in concierge services. And so what we do is offer relocation assistance, where we offer a 120-day relocation integration process. We're the only company in the diaspora that offer such a structured process. We do offer a 60-day package and a 90-day package within that 120-day. We also offer medical tourism inbound to Kenya. Super excited about that. We are the only Black owned company to have legal binding contracts with the top tier hospitals here in Kenya historically. And we also offer business development for those who are interested in expanding their businesses or investing in Kenya. We do assist you hands in the entire process. And then we also specialize in CSR work, humanitarian as well.
I love that. What was the inspiration for it? Like, you decided
Uh,
actually to help others come. Like, why? What is it
yeah,
about Kenya that made that the destination?
that's a good question. I think for me, again, being born and raised in the US, I'm at least 15 generations African American. Um, we have such a disconnect from the the continent. But we have so much information. We have so many people whose shoulders I've been able to stand on. One being the Honorable Mose Marcus Garvey, who never made it to the continent. And
Really?
as he never made it to the continent, he never made it to the continent. And so you and I are the proof of his dream
Mm,
of Pan Africanism and what
mhm.
that looked like. And so for me, as I was going through the journey of reconnecting and trying to figure out who I was as an African who happened to be American, um, I it just sparked. I have to be able to offer this to people who look like me, who don't see themselves internationally,
Hmm.
right? We are, especially just being American, very closed-minded, very in our box, right? And I often think African Americans think, while we do have a very distinctive um a story, and traumatic one at that, right? That's still ongoing. I still believe, also in the same sense that we also believe we are the only Africans in the diaspora that matter, or should know all things, everything, and then define that for everybody else, right? That's
Hmm.
that's my truth. And for the African Americans that'll be watching this, don't come for me, okay? Um, but for me, I wanted to be able to share what I've been privileged to be able to witness and to experience. I always say I'm a little girl from Charleston, South Carolina, that dropped out of the 10th grade of high school and I got a GED. The odds were against me, systematically. So technically, I ain't supposed to be here. So it is my duty to be able to share this, not only with the African American community, but the African diaspora at large.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about what I'm doing later, but it really resonates with me. And no disrespect to any African Americans. I am Jamaican, British born Jamaican of
Yeah.
African ancestry. That's how I kind of define myself. And one of the things that I have found quite interesting, particularly looking online, is hearing these conversations around the idea that kind of Caribbeans, for example, didn't
Mm-hmm.
experience the enslavement, and we haven't struggled and suffered, and obviously that's not the case. And I've always found it quite interesting because I was raised on the belief that we're all black, like whether we're
Mm-hmm.
from Africa, whether we're from the Caribbean, whether we're from the
Mm-hmm.
States. So it kind of pains me when I hear the kind of infighting, like we've struggled the worst or you haven't struggled at all. And actually
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very divisive. But I feel like there is more of a movement now, and I guess you are definitely one of the pioneers for
Mm-hmm.
black people across the diaspora generally
Mm-hmm.
looking back to Africa. One of the things though that I've seen a commentary about, and this is slightly off topic, but I feel like I want to talk to
Mm-hmm.
you about
Yeah.
it, is
Yeah.
this idea that I've been seeing, and this actually also applies to the Caribbean, but I first started seeing it kind of in conversations amongst African Americans, the idea that Black Americans are not from Africa, that actually they are indigenous to the States. And it's funny. I've been seeing it for a while, but only recently have I seen it from a Caribbean perspective. But what are your views on that? Because part of this idea of kind of the Pan-Africanism, back to Africa movement, there's an acceptance that we are all African. Now, if we
Yeah.
reject that, then how does this work?
Right. I agree 100%. I don't really get into the FBA conversations, but if you were to say, I think what FBA mean is foundational blacks in the US, my family would be a foundational black. We're Gullah Geechee. We're one
Mhm.
of the oldest people that were there on North America, either through the transatlantic slave trade or freed Africans that were there before. So I agree with the sentiments that African people were certainly on the continent of North America way before the transatlantic slave trade. But I think it does a disservice to us to contribute our navigation of the world to the transatlantic slave trade, right? We've circumnavigated this globe thousands of years before the Mzungu showed up, and we saw the vast amount of African people being stolen from
Mhm.
the continent. But I do agree that two things could be true.
Yes. Mhm.
It does not have to be one dimensional, and that's the part that frustrates me. I
Yeah.
am very proud to be Gullah Geechee and African American, but I
Mhm.
am also proud to be African.
Mhm.
Two things are true. You can be a black nationalist only in America, only in America that exists, and be Pan-African. Two things can be true. So my frustration with those conversations, where I really don't pay attention to, is that we are not one dimensional, and we're not a monolithic people. So we are very diverse within the African within the African diaspora and our continental, I like to call them cousins because we have such a huge disconnect. But even with our continental cousins, we're very diverse. So that's my take on that.
Lovely. Thank you. No, I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while, so thank you for indulging me. Back to the main topic of the conversation, though. What shifted from you, and I've kind of been a little bit presumptuous with this idea of surviving in the West, thriving in Africa. So please forgive me for the presumption. But what do you feel has shifted for you to enable you to thrive more positively, I guess, in Kenya? And how can you, or how would you speak to those who maybe are feeling frustrated, maybe are feeling a sense of we're just surviving? And when I speak of the West, I mean the States, I mean Europe, etc. We're just surviving here. Tell them how you're thriving in Kenya.
Yeah, this year has been incredible. It changed my whole trajectory of where we started as a company. We did rebrand 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. We rebranded from our first brand, Worldviews, to Traverse Culture. And in this transition, it was a bit tough being in the US because of the anxiety, the stress, just living in, constant rat race of, when am I going to be able to see some type of success and all of the work that I'm doing and all of the work that my team is putting in? Like, when are we going to be able to see the fruits of our labor? And it wasn't until I actually made that decision to fully move here. We have seen a 360 since I've been living here permanently, and it's been amazing. Um, for me, it wasn't even cutting the cost of living, but you do cut your cost. But you do go from a debt-driven society to a cash-driven society. There's no such thing as credit. That relieves stress that you didn't even know you had, but you do have to adjust your mind that everything you pay for is what you can afford. If you can't afford it, you ain't gonna have it, right? But then also being able to be introduced into circles that I would never be introduced into in the US or anywhere else unless I had millions and millions of dollars. So I'm a part of the who's who. And I do have to say this consciously that I do understand that I do live in this country from a privileged position, right? Not one of the Mzungu, but one that I am American. And then people do, view just having that passport a bit different. Humbly, I understand that, and I walk through my privilege, conscious and aware. And so I always used to tease our clients: if you want to be treated like white people, move to Africa. If you want, you want, you want to feel like you are a part of something. Move to the continent. You blend in. You can't buy that. Like, I didn't know that me blending in was eventually going to make me feel a certain kind of way. Because I'm like, hold on, I like being African American. Y'all don't, I come with my own culture. I come, to the table with something, but you just blend in. Even if you speak, most Kenyans are still going to believe that you're Kenyan and you're of the diaspora and you're visiting home. I have to literally beg them to say, no, 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 no. I'm like 15 generations African American, like at least, right? But they just, they take you in. And so being able to be here 365 days of the year makes a hell of a difference when you are trying to move from one place to another, when you're trying to network and build. Because I'm going to tell you one thing now, I'm going to keep it 100. This is a tough city to get into in terms of Nairobi. If people don't know you, I don't care what you're doing. You have to get the backing of the Kenyan people. Now, it's not hard. It's just take a little work for them to get to know you. And really, your name becomes a household name. And so now when you walk into the room, it's not you begging for someone to see you. It's, come in. We're ready to do business with you. This is where we are. And then you move forward. But it has made a tremendous difference with me living here and thriving.
And more, thank you for sharing that. From a day-to-day practical perspective. So I know for me, I live in the UK. So at the moment it's like 4 degrees. It's grey all day. It's cold. for me, one of the things about being on the continent, and that's Kenya, Nigeria, wherever, is the fact that it's warm, it's hot. Like, I guess your experience would be slightly different coming from where you come from, because I guess it was hot there for a lot of the
Mm,
time.
mm,
But
mm.
when I think about living and being in Kenya generally, I think of the weather, I think of the environment, I think of the properties, and that's what initially caught my attention. From a standard of living perspective, what has been the difference, and how have you enjoyed that?
Oh my God. I absolutely love where I live. You guys can see my background. I live in a very chic townhouse, or here they call it duplex.
Mhm.
And I absolutely love where I live. I'm not moving no time soon. I live 2 minutes away from the president of the country and another 2 minutes away from the former president of the country. And so I literally share the same water with Ruto. And so, I live in this posh, chic area, and I went from being a middle class American to an upper middle class Kenyan in the first 30 days of moving to the country, and not having to make a salary over and this is for anybody who's interested in moving over $3,000 a month. You're in upper class,
Mhm.
right? Um, that's not even remotely close to middle class in the U.S., right? I think now middle class is around 8 to 10K a month. You have to at least be making six figures in the U.S. to be considered lower middle class, and be in a safe neighborhood and have access to better schools. Whereby here, 3,000 USD a month would get you into areas like where I live at, and posh and chic and quiet and nice and very secure. And so, yeah, that's how I'm enjoying living here.
I love that. I when we spoke last week, I was mentioning the fact that there seems to be a major misunderstanding or misconception on what Kenya is, what Africa is, for many in the diaspora. And when I visited Kenya in February, absolutely loved it. And I remember coming back and somebody saying, "Oh, seeing my pictures and videos, saying, oh, we didn't know that there was a beach in Kenya."
Huh?
It was like, so one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. What would you
Yes.
say? Have you faced any of these kind of misconceptions? What would you say those in the West, those even in the diaspora, consistently kind of misunderstand or misconstrue about Kenya? Because I know for me, the property, the standard of property that I saw when I first started paying attention was far beyond anything that I had considered an excellent value for money. Like, I actually went and worked out, if we sold our house here, we'd be able to buy a house that was like double and a half the size, and the standard far superior. So I know, for one, that's one area. But what say you? What experiences have you had that you say, actually, you guys are misunderstanding this? You haven't got it right.
Yeah, I think people still think freaking elephants and giraffe walk through the. Now, what I will say, you will see a cow, you may see a monkey, you may even see somebody walking down the road in camel, and it reminds you that you're actually in Africa or you're in Kenya. But for the most part, Nairobi is one of the most metropolitan cities in the world. It's one of the fastest growing cities on the continent, and it was just voted 2025 for one of the cities that you must visit over Montreal, Canada, and
Mhm.
Paris.
Wow.
So we're talking about, yeah, it's a developing country that's competing on the global stage. And so I think some of the misconception of just crazy stuff, some I guess like, do they have steering wheels, not steering wheels, seat belts in the car? Like what? You know what I mean? Things like, oh, do they have, running water? And I must, do they have this and that? And I'm like, girl, you just don't know what you missing. I mean, a place like where I live at would easily in any metropolitan city, because you would have to compare Nairobi to a metropolitan city in the world, right? And so let's just say Atlanta, Georgia, where you get mainly you get your money's worth in Atlanta, or even Houston, Texas. But this here would rent out for at least $5,000 USD a month. This is $1,000, and I live close to the president.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, there you have it. You definitely get more than what you would get anywhere else in the West, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
And then the quality is better, right? The environment is better, the air is cleaner, the food is better, the people are nicer. It's just a 360 experience. You just can't really explain it till you have somebody come on the ground and experience it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I second everything that you've said. I've recently noticed in the last few months that the R&B singer Khalees has relocated to Kenya. I know I don't know where exactly she is, but she's been doing a lot of content, and I feel like that's also raising more of a discussion, particularly of the standard of living, the air, and all of that good stuff. It feels too good to be true. I
Mm,
know that it isn't, but I'm sure if anybody's watching, they're like, hmm. So, what are some of the challenges that people should be honest about before considering
mm, mm.
coming to Kenya? I don't want to make
Yeah.
it seem like it's. Although I keep saying in my head it's my Wakanda, but we have to speak of the challenges, not just the bonuses and the benefits.
Yes, absolutely. Those are some of the things that we talk about when we get ready to relocate people anyway, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
very, very honest. And what I'm not going to do is lie to you and set you up for failure. One of the things that people misunderstand is sustainability over budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
You may think you can afford to live here, but when you get here and you actually have to pay cash for everything, relocation is an investment. It is not something you just jump off the porch and do, and you have no way to sustain yourself here when you're spending money every day. You're
Mm-hmm.
spending money every day. And while you will cut your cost, there is a upfront investment, and then there is sustainability that you would have to navigate, right? Prior to relocating. But then two, and I'm just speaking about relocation, when you're talking about immigration,
Mm-hmm.
that can be challenging if you do not qualify for the immigration permits that they currently offer. That can be a bit frustrating for someone who fall in love with the country and you do not qualify for the immigration. Kenya does not offer free citizenship through DNA. Kenya does not offer citizenship under 7 years. It is one of the toughest places to get citizenship. That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One, they're a developing country. Two, they have a high GDP and foreign investments coming in. They don't really need to give out citizenship like another country would have to, those smaller countries that are not as developed as the Kenya. And so their pathway to citizenship takes up to 7 years, and you have to do it through the permanent residency permits if you qualify. That's a bit, frustrating, especially for those who jump off the porch, purchase real estate, plan to relocate, and you don't qualify for residency. That's backwards, and you have no asset protection. So we see that happening a lot. Then you have a lot of people who feel like that they can do real estate on their own, purchase land, and things of that nature. And you find people who get here who try to buy freehold land or leasehold land, and they get ate up. Okay, 9 times out of 10, the first time somebody hear your accent, you will get charged at least 20% higher than the actual cost. And then because most Kenyans, wouldn't know about immigration laws and how it worked for a lawyer, I mean, excuse me, for a foreigner. And if you do not have a lawyer, an actual real lawyer to create some type of guardrails for you, we've seen a lot of people come over here and lose a lot of money and end up right back where they started. So what am I saying? Yes, corruption is real. Yes, Kenya is a soft landing, a very soft landing. But if you do not speak Kiswahili, you might want to have somebody to assist you with navigating some of the more complexity of the business culture here, especially in real estate, since it is a very saturated industry here.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, it was the real estate market that really ignited my interest in Kenya because I was watching YouTube and stumbled across some property tours in a
Ah,
private gated community in Nairobi. And I was like, what is
mhm.
this? I want to get involved in this. And since then, I've been down the rabbit hole. And now here I am, some years later, organizing the Big Boss retreat to Kenya, which I'm going to cover in a moment. So I recently saw you sign the agreement for Journey to Eden. Tell us a little bit more about that. because I think this is a really
Super excited.
exciting, yeah, it's a really
Super
exciting
excited.
development.
Yes. Journey Back to Eden is our version of the year return
Mhm.
that we've been working on since the year return to get Kenya on board and to get the government to at least acknowledge and endorse it. And it's been a journey. But they have, and I want to say thank you to the Kenyan government for endorsing the Journey Back to Eden, the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we're also in partnership with KTB, the Kenyan Tourism, the Kenyan Board of Tourism as well. So shout out to KTB for also believing in us after 5 years. Thank you. Um, but essentially, it's the call to action for us of the diaspora to look to Kenya as the investment destination, medical tourism destination, relocation, all of the things. And we want to be able to create a vertical as the diaspora that we can point to where we actually have collective data to prove the value of the diaspora here through one initiative. So essentially, it is essentially forcing us to work together as the diaspora, put our money where our mouth is, and also look at the opportunities through an 8-day and a 15-day itinerary, which will have a conference, a expo, a cultural expo, and a celebration built into the itinerary. So we're not just talking at you, and we're not just going to have government officials there to tell you about the opportunities, and some of our private sector sponsors and partners like PDM Holding. Shout out to them for supporting us for the launch. And they're one of the oldest real estate developers in the country. It's almost as old as the country, and very credible. And so we also will be going into full on partnership with them, but making sure that we're able to collectively come to the table with added value and create a vertical that the Kenyan people would benefit first, and then we also benefit as a collective.
When? Tell us when.
Yep. Oh, this is next November. We have tentative dates, but we do have the wait list available right now on our website, excuse me, at tbirth.com. But when you go to the website, if you click Journey Back to Eden, you can join the wait list for next year, 2026. It is a 3-year initiative. So if you don't get into 2026, you got till 2028 to join us.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's a nice segue into one of the reasons we connected in the first place. If you can't wait till November and you want to specifically look at an opportunity to have a soft landing into Kenya, but from a business, I don't want to say, how do I want to say this? I don't want to say we need to escape the
Say
West.
it how you want to say it.
But yeah, like if you want to go to Kenya, if you want to experience Kenya, from the perspective of potentially doing business there, potentially relocating there, living, working, but also if you want a break from business, if you want to be in surroundings with other ambitious entrepreneurs, business owners, founders such as Kea and many others, then we are organizing the Big Boss Retreat Kenya for February 2026 between the 5th and the 14th February. We are going to be in Kenya for 9 days. We're going to be spending half of our time in Nairobi, and it's going to be kind of more trade mission. We've got a welcome reception with the British High Commission. We're going to be doing safari at Nairobi National Park. We're going to be having our first International Founders Dinner, which is an intimate dinner series for ambitious entrepreneurs and founders. We're then going to be traveling to Diani for a reset. So to sit, to gaze out at the beautiful ocean, because yes, there is a beach in Kenya. We're going to have a premium content day where we've got a professional photographer and videographer who are going to be creating content that you can use when you come back home, if you decide to come back home. So it's going to be a fabulous opportunity for you to experience Kenya in a curated environment. And again, we've had some fabulous partners come on board, which includes Traverse Culture, the Kenya Tourism Board, the British and the Kenyan High Commission, and a range of others. So it's going to be a fantastic opportunity. And actually, if you can do both, then I would definitely recommend that you do so, because that's what I'm trying to do, to be honest with you. But yeah, I feel like the two things just are in perfect symphony and harmony. For you, what do you see being the next big shift for, particularly speaking about entrepreneurs moving to Kenya? What are the kind of some of the opportunities you see? What are some of the kind of highlights that you think are going to be experienced both by just the general entrepreneurs, but you as a business owner in Kenya?
The big shift that you all would also get to see is medical tourism. It's a game changer, and I know the more I speak about it, the more people will come in and probably copycat or But right now we're the only one focusing on medical tourism inbound from the west to Kenya. And we've been able to have at least 6 or 7 successful procedures done with clients from the US, from fibroid surgery, open fibroid surgery, to laparoscopic fibroid surgery, hysterectomy. We had some clients come in for cancer treatment and second diagnosed for cancer as well. We have clients coming in to do dialysis here instead of doing a dialysis there, or just coming in to do dialysis while they're traveling to Kenya. I mean, it's a range of dental work, even cosmetic. We have somebody coming to do a breast augmentation. So medical tourism is definitely the next level for us. You all will see some very, very, very unique projects coming that we'll be doing for 2026, 2027 that has never been done in the world. And we'll be the first one to do it here in Kenya. So medical tourism is a huge one. Another gap that I'll throw out to everybody else is the traffic system here. If someone can come in through the private sector and get a PPP or something, and be able to organize the traffic system here, that's a huge gap. Waste management is another gap. Manufacturing of tea and coffee is another gap. Exporting of flowers is another gap. There's so many opportunities, and this is what I'll tell the audience as well. When you do come, there are nuances of a developing country that will irk your nerves. Those are gaps and those are opportunities. Fill them in instead of complaining. That's it. That's all.
That's great advice, and thank you for sharing those different areas. And we are encouraging people that operate within those sectors to join us on the Big Boss Retreat and also participate in the journey back to Eden. If people want to find out more about you, what you do, the Journey Back to Eden program, where can they find all the details? How can they do so?
Absolutely. I want to say before I say that, sister, thank you so very much for having me on your platform and the work that you're doing and tapping into I like to say the British or the Black Brits. As that's not my area of strength. And so just us collaborating and working with each other, I am honored and humbled by the work that you're putting in. And I want to say, keep up the work and don't be discouraged. Know that there's a process to this. So respect the process and you'll be okay. And again, thank you for having me on your platform. The audience can find me at tverse.com. That's our website, and all of our social media handles on IG, YouTube, and TikTok is Traverze Culture.
Lovely, thank you. And thank you for leading the way. I did mention the other day that I feel like you opened the doors because it took you 5 years to have a conversation, and it took me 5 months to have a similar conversation, and I was getting stressed until you said it took 5 years. I was like, oh my gosh, she laid the foundations. You opened the doors. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate everything that you've shared, and thank you. I did mention when we spoke last week, and I would like to share with the audience that I actually came across Kea watching YouTube, because I'm always on YouTube watching in YouTube videos, and mainly around travel and Kenya, and came across one of your videos. It must have been last year now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a while ago. And from then I was like, right, when I do this, when I sort this out, I need to speak to this lady. And then, life happens. And then I saw something else pop up, and I was like, yes, right. And I really appreciated the fact that you answered, that you responded, and that you're here. So thank you for your graciousness, because sometimes people are not as responsive as you may like. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
No, thank you so much for your time. And guys, if you are really truly considering relocating to Kenya, this is the lady for you. And if you would like to join us on the Big Boss Retreat and hopefully meet with Kea when we get there, then visit thebigbossretreat.com. And you can also connect with me on Instagram at BeTheBossINTL. I am also on LinkedIn, Daniela Genus, and I speak a lot on LinkedIn about the Big Boss Retreat and the work that we're doing. And this is the first, but it is going to be the first of many. But don't wait till the next one. Like, you want to be part of the founding committee. So get in touch. You can also email me at info@thebigbossretreat.com. I was trying to keep this into 30 minutes, but I knew really it wasn't going to be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for holding out with me. And yeah,
Mhm.
I look forward to seeing you in Kenya. Have a great holiday season, and we will speak soon. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or any comments or feedback, please do leave them in the chat. And yeah, have a great holiday. Take care.